Have you ever thought of someone you haven't seen in years, only for them to call you that same day? Or stumbled upon a book that perfectly answers the question you were just asking yourself? These moments feel too perfect to be mere coincidence. But are they truly meaningful? Or is your mind simply playing tricks on you? Throughout history, people have reported strange, almost magical coincidences that seem to defy logic. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, called this phenomenon synchronicity, the experience of events that are meaningfully connected, even though they have no obvious causal link. He believed synchronicities were glimpses into a deeper order of reality, where mind and matter are mysteriously intertwined. But not everyone agrees. Skeptics argue that our brains are wired to find patterns, even where none exist. Science tells us that our minds constantly filter and organize random information, leading to something called apophenia, the tendency to perceive connections in unrelated events. In other words, maybe these strange coincidences aren't messages from the universe at all, but simply our brains making sense of chaos. And yet, some experiences are so precise, so deeply personal, that they make us question whether reality is more connected than we think. Synchronicities may not be chance, but a reflection of how thoughts and external events align in unexpected ways. Let's go back to one of the most famous synchronicities ever recorded. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who coined the term, once had a patient who was deeply resistant to therapy. One day she described a dream about a golden scarab, a rare beetle. At that moment, Jung heard a tapping on his window. He opened it, and to his shock, a live scarab beetle, almost identical to the one in her dream, flew into the room. This event completely transformed the patient's mindset, breaking through the barriers in her treatment. How could such an uncanny moment occur at exactly the right time? Scientists argue that our brains are wired to recognize patterns, even when none exist. This is called apophenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful connections in randomness. Meanwhile, the reticular activating system in our brain filters information based on what we focus on, making certain events seem more significant. But can all synchronicities be explained by psychology and probability alone? That's where things get interesting. Jung believed synchronicities weren't just coincidences, but evidence of an underlying connection between the mind and reality. Even some physicists, like Wolfgang Pauli, found eerie parallels between synchronicity and quantum mechanics, where observation itself seems to influence reality. So, are synchronicities proof of a hidden order in the universe, or just cognitive illusions? And if they are real, can we actually use them to shape our lives? By the end of this video, you'll not only understand the science and spirituality behind synchronicities, but also learn how to recognize them, and maybe even influence them. Because if reality is speaking to you, the real question is, are you paying attention? And if you're ready to explore these mysteries even deeper, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Patterns define how we understand the world. A face in the clouds, a familiar melody in white noise, our minds are built to connect dots, even when no real connection exists. This ability has fueled human creativity and survival, allowing us to recognize threats, predict outcomes, and make sense of chaos. But it also means we sometimes see meaning where there is none. This is the foundation of apophenia, the brain's tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in randomness. It's why gamblers believe in lucky streaks, and why we assign significance to numbers that repeat in our daily lives. Synchronicities fit into this framework, unexpected connections that feel too perfect to be chance, but may in fact be cognitive illusions. One reason we notice these moments is the reticular activating system, RAS, a network in the brainstem that acts as a filter, highlighting information we subconsciously deem important. If you decide to buy a red car, you suddenly see red cars everywhere. They were always there, but now your brain is prioritizing them. When a particular name, symbol, or event repeats in your life, it's not necessarily a message from the universe. It could be your RAS making it stand out. Another key factor is confirmation bias, our tendency to favor information that aligns with our beliefs. If you expect to see signs, you will. Every minor coincidence takes on meaning, reinforcing the idea that something larger is at play. This is how people interpret dreams as prophecies, or believe the universe is answering their thoughts. The brain builds a self-reinforcing loop, strengthening the perception that these moments are meaningful. Then there's probability. Strange coincidences feel remarkable, but statistically, they are inevitable. With billions of interactions happening every second, it's not surprising that improbable events occur. A classic example is the birthday paradox. In a room of just 23 people, there's a 50% chance that 2 of them share a birthday. Our intuition struggles with these odds, making rare events seem far more significant than they are. From a purely scientific perspective, synchronicities can be explained through these cognitive and statistical mechanisms. Yet, this explanation doesn't fully capture why some coincidences feel deeply personal, so precise, so timely that they seem to defy logic. A psychological trick shouldn't be able to evoke a visceral, almost spiritual response. And yet it does, which raises an unsettling question. Is the mind simply misinterpreting reality? Or is reality responding to the mind? Carl Jung believed that synchronicities were more than psychological patterns. To him, these moments weren't just coincidences, but glimpses of an underlying order, an invisible framework connecting the mind and the external world. He called it the unus mundus, the idea that psyche and matter emerge from the same source. If true, then thoughts wouldn't just interpret reality, they might shape it. This idea found an unexpected ally in quantum physics. Physicist Wolfgang Pauli, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics, was fascinated by Jung's work. Their discussions led to a radical possibility that the same principles governing the subatomic world might also apply to consciousness. Take quantum entanglement. 2 particles can become so deeply connected that a change in one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. This suggests that space and time are not as rigid as they seem. Could synchronicities be a reflection of this hidden connectivity? Then there's the observer effect. In quantum experiments, particles behave differently depending on whether they are being observed. This raises an unsettling question. Does consciousness influence reality at a fundamental level? Some interpretations suggest that the act of perception doesn't just record the universe, it plays a role in shaping it. If observation can alter quantum states, then perhaps thoughts and intentions do more than we assume. Jung and Pauli speculated that the psyche might operate on principles similar to quantum mechanics, with meaning itself acting as a force of attraction. In this view, synchronicities wouldn't be random. They would be patterns formed by an interaction between mind and matter, drawn together by shared significance. Of course, mainstream science remains cautious. Most physicists argue that quantum mechanics applies only to microscopic particles, not human experience. The leap from subatomic behavior to synchronicity is enormous, and there is no empirical evidence proving that consciousness influences physical reality in this way. Still, the parallels are difficult to ignore. If entanglement shows that 2 things can be mysteriously linked across space, and the observer effect suggests that consciousness plays a role in what unfolds, then maybe Jung's ideas weren't so far off. If meaning itself can shape reality, then recognizing synchronicities isn't just about noticing patterns, it might be about participating in them. Synchronicities stand out because they feel personal. A song plays at the exact moment you need to hear it. A conversation delivers an answer to a question you haven't spoken aloud. These moments seem orchestrated, yet they follow no obvious cause and effect logic. Recognizing them begins with awareness, but using them requires a shift in perception. The first step is attention. Most people move through life absorbed in routine, missing subtle connections between events. Keeping a synchronicity journal helps sharpen awareness. Writing down coincidences, no matter how small, reveals patterns that might otherwise go unnoticed. Over time, these records form a map of meaningful events, showing how certain themes or symbols tend to repeat. Mindfulness plays a role as well. A scattered mind filters reality through distractions, but when fully present, details emerge that would otherwise be overlooked. Meditation, deep breathing, or simply pausing to observe surroundings heightens this sense of clarity. Synchronicities often appear when the mind is still enough to notice them. Intention can also influence these experiences. While not a guarantee of results, setting a clear focus, whether a question, decision, or personal goal, creates a mental framework that the brain subconsciously follows. The reticular activating system, which prioritizes information based on relevance, begins highlighting anything connected to that focus. This effect explains why people start seeing opportunities, symbols, or connections related to their thoughts. Whether this is purely neurological or something deeper is open to interpretation, but the results are real. Interpreting synchronicities requires discernment. Not every coincidence carries meaning, and forcing significance onto random events can lead to false patterns. A useful approach is to look for emotional resonance. The synchronicities that matter tend to evoke a response: curiosity, excitement, a feeling of recognition. If an event feels charged with significance, reflecting on its potential message can provide clarity. Symbolism is another key element. Repeating numbers, specific animals, names, or phrases often carry personal meaning, shaped by past experiences. Many cultures and spiritual traditions believe in universal symbols, but personal context is just as important. A black cat might be a bad omen to some, while to others, it's a sign of independence or mystery. Paying attention to how a synchronicity feels, rather than relying on external interpretations, leads to a more authentic understanding. Perhaps the most valuable way to work with synchronicities is through action. Insight without movement changes nothing. If a meaningful coincidence points toward a decision, a path, or a new idea, engaging with it completes the cycle. Ignoring it leaves it as an observation, but responding turns it into a potential turning point. Whether these events are external signs or internal projections, they have the power to shift perspective. And sometimes, a shift in perspective is enough to change everything. Some moments change the way you see everything. A conversation at the right time. A symbol appearing when you need direction. A coincidence so precise it shakes something deep inside you. Maybe you've had experiences like this, so unexplainable, so perfectly timed, that they left you wondering whether something greater was at work. This isn't just about patterns or probabilities. It's about how reality responds when you start paying attention. The mind and the world are not separate. What you focus on expands. What you believe shapes what you notice. The more you open yourself to meaning, the more meaning finds its way to you. And that's where the real magic begins. Every person who has ever transformed their life started with a moment of awareness, a realization, a shift, an invitation to see beyond the obvious. What if every synchronicity you experience is exactly that? Not a random glitch, not an illusion, but a doorway, a sign that something within you is waking up. You are not here by accident. You found this content for a reason, just as countless others have. This community is filled with minds that question, souls that seek, and people who know deep down that there is more to reality than we've been told. Together, we are rewriting what is possible. The signs have always been there. The question is, how will you respond? Because once you start noticing, you'll never see life the same way again. And something tells me, this is only the beginning. If this resonated with you, subscribe and be part of a community that sees beyond the ordinary. There's so much more to explore, and we're just getting started. And right now, the algorithm has chosen 2 videos for you. Both paths lead deeper. Follow where your curiosity takes you. It might unlock even more synchronicities.